Prayer is something that is not always well understood. That's especially true for non-Christians, of course, but sometimes it can also be true for those who have been Christian for quite a long while. Yet prayer is both the way to build a relationship with Jesus, and it's also the way in which Jesus makes his will known to each one of us. Psalm 5 says to us, "Give ear to my words, O Lord. Consider my sighing. Listen to my cry for help. My King and my God, for to you I pray. In the morning, O Lord, you hear my voice. In the morning I lay my requests before you and wait in expectation." Prayer is communicating with God, and communication is always a two-way process. We need to pray with honesty. We need to pray about everything. We need to pray continually, but we also need to remember to stop and listen. How do you talk to God with honesty? With true gut-level honesty. In the book of Exodus, chapter 5, we read there that Moses returned to the Lord and said, "O Lord, why have you brought trouble upon this people? Is this why you sent me? Ever since I went to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has brought trouble upon this people. And you have not rescued your people at all." And then Jesus himself said to us, "And when you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners, to be seen by men. And when you pray, do not keep on babbling like pagans, for they think that they will be heard because of their many words." Now those words of Jesus can be found in the Gospel of St. Matthew, chapter 6, verses 5 and 7. What should we understand from those two passages about this aspect of prayer? Well, what I understand from both of the texts is that it's actually okay to tell God when something is wrong or doesn't please us. Because prayer is not about going on in an archaic language, using words like thee and thou. It's not about following a particular format or formula. And it's not about the quantity of words you use. It's more about a heart-to-heart conversation with a friend over everyday things that really matter to you. Pray about everything that matters to you. The Apostle Paul tells us, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God." And the Apostle Peter says, "Cast all your anxiety on him, because he cares for you." Pray continually. The Catholic Church has a tradition for its priests, deacons and religious of saying the daily office together at set times. It's a prayer and psalms that are split into portions interspersed throughout the day. And its institution is based on those words that we read in that first letter that Paul, Silas and Timothy wrote to the Thessalonians. It's in chapter 5, verses 16 to 18, and it says, "Be joyful always, pray continually, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus." Pray, pray, pray until something happens. As she kept on praying to the Lord, Eli observed her mouth. Hannah was praying in her heart, and her lips were moving, but her voice was not heard. Like Hannah, pray from your heart continually, and do not forget to listen for his response. It's easy to babble on and then fail to listen for or hear the answer. How many times have our children done that to us? It's the same with prayer, exactly the same. We can be so busy speaking we just forget to pause for breath and listen. In the Old Testament scriptures, in the first book of Kings, we read the story about Elijah where it says, "And after the fire came a gentle whisper, When Elijah heard it, he pulled his cloak over his face and went out and stood at the mouth of the cave. Elijah recognized that God does not always shout his answers to us, and if we do not listen, we may miss his gentle speaking in our hearts. Jesus told us, "My sheep listen to my voice. I know them, and they follow me."